Is that the cost of living and mortgage rates increasing is now limiting the help that they can offer. And as you say, Help to Buy, the lifeline for so many, ends next week.
So for those first-time buyers, I mean, there clearly are no easy answers. Should they wait?
Well, there's no denying that things are difficult, but we are starting to see green shoots, such as mortgage rates starting to fall back. But it'd be naive to think that there won't be further volatility. We just have to hope that our new Prime Minister is more fiscally responsible than the last one. But in terms of tips, at a time like this, a good mortgage broker is worth their weight in gold, as they'll be able to advise you on your options, including the more specialist products designed for first-time buyers. And with the uncertainty, if you can afford to wait, you probably should. But ultimately, it does depend on your circumstance, because if you're renting, as Guy was, you're paying off your landlord's mortgage, not building equity. So even with mortgages at higher rates, taking a look at your monthly mortgage payments compared to your current rent is a good way to compare whether owning might work for you.
So from next Monday at 6 p.m, you will no longer be able to apply for the government's Help to Buy scheme. What are the alternatives? Are there any?
Sure. So Help to Buy has been a success for first-time buyers, but it's not been without its problems. It was strictly for new builds, so that really restricts choice for first-time buyers. And in addition, like a new car, new homes attract a premium. But there are a number of private alternatives that have cropped up. So there are innovative new shared equity products, such as Even, which focuses on pre-owned homes and gives first-time buyers a deposit boost to increase their affordability. Also, lenders like Nationwide have made efforts to help first-time buyers with products like Help in Hand. But again, a good broker should be able to walk you through all the options.
So taking a longer look, has it been a success, Help to Buy?
I think Help to Buy has been a success. There's 300,000 people who have been helped with it. That's helped a lot of people onto the ladder. But like I say, there are reasons that some people didn't like it. And the great thing about it coming to an end is that there's been a lot of initiative from a number of private companies. And so there's all different flavours out there now that help first-time buyers in a variety of situations.
Did it help the builders more than it helped the first-time buyers?
Well, builders obviously profited very nicely off the whole thing, of course. But they're now going to be looking at how they help people into homes. And so again, it really comes back to the whole industry working together. Whether that is the new home builders, the government, lenders like Even, all coming together to find a solution that works for first-time buyers.
So finally, Ben, is it fair, the way first-time buyers are being treated?
No, absolutely not. As we gave earlier, I hear stories like this all the time from people desperate to get on the ladder. And it has a bigger impact than simple owning or not owning. There's a growing generational wealth divide, and it's driven by property ownership. And it has broader societal implications. People want to start families, they want to put down roots, and the lack of access to home ownership is denying them of that.
Trouble is, if I asked you what the solution was, it would take an hour and we got 30 seconds. But is there one thing that you would say?
The one thing is greater industry collaboration between government, lenders and innovative firms that help first-time buyers, and make sure that first-time buyers do their homework and find the answer that's right for them.
Ben Bailey from First-Time Buyers Mortgage Lenders Even, thank you very much. Now, millions of energy customers have just been given an even greater financial incentive to cut back on their power usage, as if they needed one. The value of discounts on electricity bills for households that cut peak time use is to be raised as part of a new scheme being launched by the National Grid next month, designed to prevent rolling power cuts this winter. Households with smart meters will now be paid £3 per kilowatt hour instead of 52 pence if they avoid high power activities like cooking when demand is at its highest. Well, several energy companies plan to take part in this scheme, including Octopus Energy, which also participated in a trial with the National Grid's electricity system operator earlier in the year. Well, Rachel Fletcher is Director of Regulation and Economics at Octopus Energy. Andy Holmes is an Octopus Energy customer from Reading who took part in the trial. Rachel Fletcher, if I can come to you first. So how exactly does this scheme work?
Well, firstly, we're really excited about this opportunity to give our customers a chance to save money and to help balance the grid during the winter. And we'll be doing everything that we can to make it easy and attractive for people to participate. So we will be inviting all of our customers, 1.4 million domestic customers with smart meters, an opportunity to participate in what we're calling saving sessions. And then the day ahead of when their demand needs to shift, we'll be contacting them, telling them the period, the window in which we're looking for them to turn down their electricity use, and the price and the reward that we'll be giving them for shifting their demand out of that period.
So how exactly would you measure how much they've saved? Just trying to figure out how that actually works.
Yeah, well, this is the use of the smart meter coming into its own. So the smart meter is measuring customers' electricity use every half hour. So we know what the customer would normally use over that window. And therefore we can measure how much demand the customer has shifted.
So it will be a comparison with what they'd used in the past, will it?
Absolutely.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And you keep mentioning smart meters. Is it only people with smart meters who can take part in this?
Absolutely. Anyone with a smart meter can participate, but we need to be able to measure that half hour by half hour consumption to be able to pay our customers for the demand shifting that they are providing to the system.
And how much money do you think they'll be able to save? I mean, obviously it will vary, but can you give me some sort of parameters?
Yeah, I mean, we estimate that if a customer participates around once a week over the winter, they should be expecting to save on average a total of £100. So, a really decent amount of money for doing something that helps the grid out over the winter. Okay,
stay with us, Rachel, because there's still things that will crop up. Andy Holmes is also with us. I mean, tell us about your experience in the trial. What did you have to do?
Yeah, so we had obviously an email saying we had 8 sessions of 2-hour slots to reduce our energy usage, and sometimes it was like 30% reduction or 40% reduction, and we'd basically take the smart meter, run around the house and see what we could turn off to try and reduce our energy usage.
Right.
Essentially.
And I mean, so how did it work financially? How much did you save, and how much money did you make?
Yeah, well, on the high usage hours, for example, like 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock on a weeknight, we saved probably about £2 worth of off our bill, and then on other instances, it was only about 50p. But for us, it was kind of more of a gain, to be honest, and trying to hit those percentages every session.
So in all, did you add up exactly how much you saved over the period? And just remind me, how long was the period you did this for?
It was eight sessions of 2 hours, so 16 hours in total, and obviously it was spread out over different hours of the day. So sometimes we were saving a lot of money, sometimes we were saving just like 50p or something. So I think we kind of got about £5 or £10 off our electric bill at the end of the session. I can't remember exactly how much. It was, like I said, it was more about hitting the targets than saving money at that point.
So I mean, how difficult was it? I mean, did you have to sort of put on your washing machine at 3 o'clock in the morning, or have your breakfast at 2 a.m? I'm wondering what kind of strategies you used to do it.
Yeah. So on the days where it was harder to hit the marks, me and my wife, we would go to the office and work, so that would save some electricity straight away. And it was a case of trying to find items that were on standby to try and turn those off. I think the hardest session we had was trying to save 30% between midnight and 2 a.m. And of course, everything's turned off between those hours anyway, so it was a struggle to hit that one, which was a bit of a challenge. But it was a case of just cooking at different times, putting the washing machine on at different times, and then or driving to the office to work if we couldn't hit the target, essentially.
Right. Was there anything unusual that you did in order to make it work?
Well, it did get to the point where I was thinking about turning the fridge off for a couple of hours to see if that would make a difference, because we found that once we've turned everything off, it's just the fridge that was kind of the fridge and the freezer that was drawing the power, and we wondered how long we could get away with it.
Right. And did you did that? Did you? No. It's not a good idea, is it? Really. Andy, thanks very much. To come back to Rachel, I mean, first, what about how do you actually assess peaks? I mean, were you advising people about things that they might do?
Yeah, well, look, first, can I just say, I mean, Andy's experience is fantastic, but the great news is because of that trial that Andy helped us in, National Grid now really understands the value of customer flexibility to help them manage the system. So the money on offer this winter is 10 times roughly per unit what we were paying customers during the trial that Andy participated in. So hopefully our customers now will get much more for the efforts than Andy did in that session. But yes, we'll be providing advice and ideas on how people can shift their demand. But typical appliances like microwaves and electric ovens, washing machines, and so on. Actually, if you change when you use those appliances, you can make a real difference to the peak demand on the grid, which is typically between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the evening.
Just one mischievous thought: there was an awful lot of pressure from the government on people to get smart meters. This wouldn't be part of the same campaign, would it?
Absolutely not. But this is, as I said, this is a real example of how smart meters can help us run a much more efficient grid, actually helping us to make use of local produced renewable energy when it's plentiful and cheap. And actually what we're talking about for this winter really should be the norm and a normal part of how we operate our electricity system.
Rachel Fletcher of Octopus Energy and Andy Holmes, thank you both very much indeed. And that's all for today. Tomorrow, Shari Val's back asking questions on people's behalf. This time she's taking the authorities to task over stolen property, and she asks why homeowners can't get their house back when criminals have managed to get hold of the title deeds. And then from 12:30, it's all consuming. This week they're turning their gaze on virtual reality, and that all starts just after the midday news. Quite a lot of interest about the car deals. A listener got in touch to say they think car finance is the biggest rip-off you can enter into. They've paid cash for all the cars they've ever owned. Have a good day. Join us tomorrow.
You and Yours was produced by Craig Henderson. The studio managers were Amy Brennan and Nat Stokes. Now let's get the lunchtime weather from Thomas Schaffnacker. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, VG, and a very good afternoon to you. It's very mild out there, not just by day but also by night. In fact, last night in Swanage the temperature didn't drop below 16.5 degrees Celsius, so that's the overnight low, and that is actually higher than what we'd expect to have during the daytime this time in October. And these mild conditions will continue.
Tiptree.
Further, but with that blustery southwesterly winds today, let's start the forecast for later this afternoon with England and Wales, and overall a bright afternoon and a clear end to the day for many of us here. The winds are quite brisk, particularly around western coasts of Wales and the southwest of England, and also some quite large waves off the coast of Cornwall too. A few showers about at the moment, but I think as we go through the course of the day it will tend to dry out. And those temperatures, 18 degrees in many towns and cities in the south here in England, up to 20 in London, and further north in England across Yorkshire around 17 or so exceedingly mild. Now in Scotland and Northern Ireland, we had that heavy rain earlier on. It's now moving towards the north, so I think second half of the day in Scotland and Northern Ireland, we're talking about bright spells, brisk winds as well, and temperatures of around 16 degrees Celsius. That takes us into tonight. The first half of the night will be generally clear across most of the UK. Temperatures will dip between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius. And then tomorrow we're expecting more cloud overall across the UK and a chance of catching some rain. The brightest of the weather tomorrow will be in the northeast of the country, Fiji.
Thomas, thanks very much indeed.
On BBC Radio 4.
If you believe in good, you have to believe in evil.
A new paranormal cold case investigation.
This thing is not playing about. It means to hurt them.
With me, Danny Robbins.
You are the one who's possessed.
A thrilling blend of documentary and drama starring Alexander Roach and Joseph Fiennes.
It's infecting him, possessing him.
About an ordinary family in a terrifying situation.
Were you imagining that?
On Radio 4.
He's coming.
The Witch Farm.
He's coming now.
Available now on BBC Sounds.
On 92 to 95 FM, 198 longwave, on digital radio and on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 4.
Hello and welcome to The World at One, with me, Sarah Montague. Rishi Sunak's first Prime Minister's questions, with questions over the controversial return of his Home Secretary.
She accepted her mistake, and that's why I was delighted to welcome back into a united cabinet that brings experience and stability to the heart of government.
It was a big political moment, and one in which Sir Keir Starmer mocked the way the new Prime Minister had got his job.
The only time he ran in a competitive election, he got trounced by the former Prime Minister, who herself got bitten by a lettuce.
Immigration remains a flashpoint. The founder of ITSU says the drop in available staff has been catastrophic.
We have had to put up our wages 22.3% in just the last 18 months. Most hospitality businesses can never afford to do that, could never afford to do that.
And James May on the end of the road for that firm favourite, the Ford Fiesta.
People who haven't actually sat in one probably for 30 years will be feeling that little twinge because they make an immediate connection with youth, optimism, love, sunshine.
The BBC News is read by Tom Sanders.
In the past hour, Rishi Sunak has defended his decision to reappoint Suella Braverman as Home Secretary, less than a week after she was forced out by Liz Truss for a security breach. Speaking at his first Prime Minister's questions since entering Number 10 amid calls from opposition parties for an official inquiry into Ms Braverman's appointment, Mr Sunak told the Commons she had made an error of judgment but accepted her mistake. Our political correspondent Ben Wright was listening.
Facing his third Conservative Prime Minister since becoming Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer welcomed Rishi Sunak into the job, congratulating him on becoming the first British Asian to enter Number 10. But he then tried to pin Mr Sunak down on the circumstances surrounding Suella Braverman's return as Home Secretary. 6 days ago, she quit the cabinet following a breach of security, but was given her post back yesterday. Ms Braverman is on the right of the Tory party and backed Mr Sunak's leadership bid. Keir Starmer accused the Prime Minister of doing a grubby deal to win the contest and asked if officials had raised concerns about Ms Braverman's appointment, a question Mr Sunak chose to sidestep. The Prime Minister said the Home Secretary had recognised her mistake and was a welcome member of a united cabinet. It was a pugnacious first appearance by Mr Sunak, and Tory MPs sounded cheerier than they have for weeks, but the economic and political problems he faces remain huge.
The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has said the government will delay next week's announcement of its medium-term fiscal plans and hold an autumn statement next month instead. Mr Hunt said it was prudent to allow more time to get the most up-to-date economic forecasts from the Office for Budget Responsibility. Our economics correspondent Andy Verity reports.
As recently as Monday, Jeremy Hunt was working with Treasury officials on setting out their full plans for the public finances over the next 5 years, the bits missing from last month's mini-budget, by Halloween this coming Monday. Liz Truss had brought the announcement forward from the original date of November the 23rd after criticism that it was too long to wait to calm volatile markets. However, Jeremy Hunt's reversal of most of the mini-budget's tax cuts already had a strong calming effect, as did Boris Johnson's exit from the leadership race. The new Chancellor has now announced that the fiscal plan will be upgraded to an autumn statement with full independent costings and forecasts, and delayed from next Monday until the 17th of November, just 6 days earlier than Kwasi Kwarteng had planned. The interest rates investors expect to compensate for the risks of lending to the UK government stayed lower following today's announcement, which will in itself take some pressure off the public finances.
A senior advisor to President Zelensky of Ukraine has warned that a major battle could be looming in the southern region of Kherson. Oleksiy Arestovich said Russia had been reinforcing its army units and telling civilians to leave. In a phone call with his Chinese counterpart, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu again expressed concern that Ukraine is preparing to detonate a dirty bomb, a claim which Ukraine and its Western allies have strongly rejected. President Macron of France is hosting a working lunch in Paris with Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany against a backdrop of growing rifts between the two countries, notably over defence, energy and Ukraine. The summit replaces a joint meeting of the two countries' governments, which was cancelled at the last minute. From Paris, Hugh Schofield reports.
Joint Franco-German cabinet meetings have been a routine for the last 20 years, so the cancellation was seen in France as worryingly symbolic. Chancellor Scholz, coming instead for a personal visit to the Elysée, is meant to reassure, but there's no hiding the anxiety in Paris about a Germany that appears bent on forging its own path in Europe, gone the instinct to consult with France at every move. The war in Ukraine, of course, is what's wrought the change. Germany's economic and security models are being totally redrawn. Its focus is shifting east, and the French alliance is no longer the priority it was.
The Dutch government says it's investigating reports that China has set up 2 illegal police stations in the Netherlands with the aim of harassing exiled dissidents. Reports say 2 officers in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, meant to help Chinese citizens living there, are in fact used to silence critics. A report by a Spanish organisation says China has set up 54 such police centres around the world, including 2 in London and 1 in Glasgow. Anna Holligan reports from The Hague.
These undeclared units were ostensibly designed to tackle transnational crime and to conduct administrative duties. But according to the report, in reality they carry out persuasion operations aimed at coercing those suspected of speaking out against the Chinese regime to return home. One Chinese dissident granted asylum in the Netherlands described being targeted by staff from one such police station. The Dutch Foreign Ministry told the BBC that the Dutch government wasn't made aware of these operations through the diplomatic channels with the Chinese government, which is illegal. Dutch officials are now trying to establish the nature of any covert activities. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has rejected the Dutch allegations. A spokesman said Beijing fully respected other countries' judicial sovereignty.
Hundreds of people in northwestern Iran have gathered at the grave of Mahsa Amini to mark 40 days since she died in police custody, accused of breaching strict clothing rules. Weeks of protests broke out in her hometown of Sagez after her death. A report published in the Lancet Medical Journal is warning that climate change is causing increasingly severe health problems around the world. The review finds heat-related deaths have increased by 2/3 over the last 2 decades. Mosquito-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue fever are also on the rise. The authors from 51 global institutions say millions of lives would be saved if governments took immediate action. In cricket, England's men have suffered a major upset at the T20 World Cup in Australia. They lost by 5 runs against Ireland in a rain-affected match in Melbourne. It means they now need to beat Australia, New Zealand and Sri Lanka in their remaining group stage matches to guarantee progression in the tournaments.
Tom, thanks very much. Some more firsts for the new Prime Minister this morning. He had the first meeting of his new cabinet, and then his first time facing off against the Labour leader at Prime Minister's Questions. This is how Sir Keir Starmer opened his questioning.
May I welcome the Prime Minister. The first British Asian Prime Minister is a significant moment in our national story. And it's a reminder that for all the challenges we face as a country, Britain is a place where people of all races and all beliefs can fulfill their dreams. That's not true in every country, and many didn't think that they would live to see the day when it would be true here. It's part of what makes us all so proud to be British. Was his Home Secretary right to resign last week for a breach of security?
Prime Minister! Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his kind and indeed generous welcome to the dispatch box. I look forward to Prime Minister's question time with him, and I know that we will have, no doubt, robust exchanges, but I hope that they can also be serious and grown up. So I look forward to that. Well, he asked about the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary made an error of judgment, but she recognised that. She raised the matter and she accepted her mistake. And that's why I was delighted to welcome back into a united cabinet that brings experience.
Well, Sir Keir went on to ask if government officials had raised concerns about the Home Secretary's appointment, a question the Prime Minister didn't answer, something Sir Keir noted in his next question. But then it was on to the economy.
The government currently allows very rich people to live here but register abroad for tax purposes. I don't need to explain to the Prime Minister how non-dom status works. He already knows all about that. It costs the Treasury £3.2 billion every year. Why doesn't he put his money where his mouth is and get rid of it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have been honest. We will have to take difficult decisions to restore economic stability and confidence. And my honourable friend, the Chancellor, will set that out in an autumn statement in just a few weeks. But what I can say, as we did during COVID, we will always protect the most vulnerable. We will do this in a fair way. But what I can say, I am glad, Mr. Speaker, that the party opposite, honourable gentleman, has finally realised that spending does need to be paid for.
Well, Sir Keir joked about whether the new Prime Minister had been following the news in the past few weeks. And he ended with this.
The only time he ran in a competitive election, he got trounced by the former Prime Minister, who herself got beaten by a lettuce. So why doesn't he put it to the test, let working people have their say and call a general election?
To which the Prime Minister responded like this.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about mandates, about votes, about elections. It's a bit rich coming from the person who tried to overturn the biggest democratic vote in our country's history.
Well, he went on to say that he had a mandate from the 2019 election, a mandate to deliver on the NHS, on schools and on levelling up. Well, there's been scarcely a programme in recent weeks when we haven't referred to the 31st of October and the government's much vaunted fiscal statement that would set out how it plans to make the numbers add up. It's a date we were also going to hear about the Office for Budget Responsibility's judgment on those sums. But this morning, the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt reflected on the need to include the most accurate, up-to-date fiscal forecast in that plan statement.
Prime Minister and I have decided that it is prudent to make that statement on the 17th of November, when it will be upgraded to a full autumn statement.
Well, it does mean that when the Bank of England meets on the 3rd of November, they'll be deciding on interest rates before they have the full picture from the government. Mohammed El-Arian is Chief Economic Advisor at Allianz, President of Queen's College, Cambridge. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you on the programme. Can I ask your judgment? We have been waiting so long, and they even brought the date forward from the original timing of this fiscal statement because there was such concern about what was going to be in it. Does it matter that it's now been delayed again?
It does matter. I would say the delay is understandable. The timing of the announcement of the delay is good, but there are significant risks. It's understandable because the new Prime Minister wants to look at many options, not only how much to cut, but where should that fall on revenues or on expenditures. It is good timing because the global markets are calm right now. They are forgiving, but it is risky in two ways. One, you mentioned the Bank of England. they will meet, and once again they will be flying blind, and it's not a good situation to have your central bank flying blind. And then the second issue is that you cannot guarantee that markets will remain calm. There's a lot going on in the world, and it won't take much to make markets jittery again. So understandable, but risky.
Okay, so what does it mean, do you think, for the decision that the Bank of England is going to take on the 3rd of November?
I suspect it means they are more likely to be more hawkish than they would have been otherwise.
Which means rates go up higher.
Yes, I think that interest rates will likely to go up by 0.75 percentage points. Could be as much as 1. The alternative, if they had a clear fiscal plan in front of them, would be 0.5 percentage points. So I suspect that the Bank of England may end up erring on the side of caution, because the last thing they want is to repeat the experience of a month ago.
So what can the government do ahead of that? Because there are, of course, weekly meetings with the Bank of England Governor and the Chancellor, and there are statements that the government can make publicly. What do they need to be seen to be doing?